It's Stuart George with a special debate this morning. With us, the leaders of the Conservative, Labour, Liberal Democrat and UKIP groups on Cheshire East Council. At the moment, the council's made up of 50 Conservatives, 14 Labour, 4 Liberal Democrats, 12 independents, and unlike Stoke-on-Trent, they are independent of each other. There's lots of small groups, and 2 from UKIP. Some comments coming in. We welcome your comments in this hour. 01782 208 008 is the number to call. One comment asking if we can make Councillor Jones leave unless he can keep quiet. It's annoying, says Jen in Nantwich. If we could all respect each other, that would be most useful. Another question then. Do you accept, for the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats, this one, do you accept that your party in government made it easier to build in the countryside? Rod Fletcher for the Liberal Democrats.
In all probability, that is correct, but not necessarily in the green belt, but on greenfield sites. I find that regrettable, because originally, in 2010, we were told that if we adopted a town strategy, and it wasn't just in Old Sage, it was in other towns in Cheshire East as well, we were told that if we adopted a town strategy, we'd have a significant defence against this unwarranted development on greenfield site.
Do you feel betrayed by your party nationally on this, then?
I certainly feel betrayed by the Cheshire East members of Parliament and possibly by some members of my party. But of course, we are the junior partner in a coalition. But I suspect that on occasions that some members of Parliament didn't fully understand what they were voting for when they voted for this MPPF.
That's the National Public Planning
I don't think they fully understood what they were voting for.
The National Planning Framework was introduced by the Conservative government in line with the Liberal Democrats, and that's been a developer's charter. It's allowed developers to do virtually what they want. UKIP are bound to repeal that. We will throw that out, and we will put local communities back in charge of planning in Cheshire East, and on big applications we will allow the local residents to have a say through a referendum.
Now, this framework has a presumption in favour of building in the countryside unless there are extenuating circumstances. Michael Jones for the Conservatives. Do you accept that the Conservatives in government have made it easier to build on the green sites that you say you're trying to protect?
I think it's interesting because obviously you haven't read the MPP. It says presumption for development, not specifically in green fields, which is an important difference. The fact of the matter is that
it doesn't say not in green fields, does it?
Well, again, you're being pedantic, and the point is
well, no, it says
presumption for development is what it says. If you're going to be clear, let's be clear. Presumption for development, that means anywhere, okay? But it also means brownfield. Cheshire has a very clear commitment to brownfield sites. I've already said to you, 78% of these sites are on reasonable development for are on brownfield. But the question you're asking is very serious and easy to answer. One, yes, we need to build more houses. Every party is saying they're going to build more houses, some large more. The Labour Party is saying 250,000. Now, we all accept that. Let's not be hypocrites about that. So where are you going to put it? We've got a plan which is coming forward now. It's going forward because our growth rates are higher. It started with a 0.4% growth rate. I wasn't on that cabinet when that was done. Brian Sylvester was, by the way, and I'd like to make that point because he's got his great plan. But what it's about really is about the fact we have to save our economy. We were in a deep recession. You look at yesterday's growth rates, again, very strong. Today's in America, very weak. France is weak. Germany's weak. You look what's going on, the growth rates, the economy, we're still, look at wrong. Everyone says I'm wrong because, of course, I read the statistics. Now, the fact is, America announced yesterday to this morning a 0.2% growth rate for the first quarter. That's way below expectations. We've got to be careful about our economy. Now, one of the things we have is 23% of our economy is in the construction-related areas. That's why MPF came in, to boost the economy and get that to work. And that's the right thing. Now, I regret some of the applications we've come forward. And yes, I've stood up in meetings, but I've tried hard. That's why we fought over 160 appeals, more than any other council in the Northwest. That's why we've won many appeals as well, and are winning more now.
But the fact
is, also why we have introduced neighbourhood plans to give strength. And now we've got 4 coming to be emerging and going through. And I'd like to say, that we're bringing more in, including in Councillor Sylvester's area, in Worcester Parish Council now leading on, without his support. And that's the key thing going forward. We're going to do more and more of this. It's about local democracy, but we have to put the economy right. We have to get jobs. We have to give people hope. And unemployment in Cheshire is below 1% because of that. And
okay, but the fact is that Cheshire East, led by the Conservatives, has failed and failed and failed again on planning. They are required.
This is not good language, Brian. You've got to stop knocking our officers.
Stop being so childish.
You've done this publicly.
Stop being so childish,
Councillor
Councillor Jones. Just let me speak.
You keep on saying
Stop
failed
being
when we
so
looked
childish.
after everybody, got the lowest unemployment in the North
Right,
West.
can we let Brian Sylvester speak?
The council is required to have a 5-year supply of housing land. They have failed to do that. From 2014, Councillor Jones says we've got a 5-year supply. They didn't. Now in 2015, he says we have a 5-year supply. We don't. Applications are now coming to committee, and the planning officers are openly admitting they do not have a 5-year supply. Now, this is not rocket science. All they need to do is get the 5-year supply in place, get the plan in place, get it adopted, and then the local people will be in charge of planning in Cheshire East. At the moment, the developers are in charge because the Conservatives have let the people of Cheshire East down.
Let me bring in David Newton for Labour. The government says 40,000 new homes need to be built in Cheshire East over the next few decades. Can you guarantee large areas of the countryside wouldn't be built on if Labour was running the council?
I would prefer not to do that, and I think that the presumption for us would be that we would prioritise brownfield sites. In fact, that is our policy. But I think the NPPF has in fact been a sort of freedom for all charter to allow them allow developers to do what they wish under the presumption for development. We don't think there's been enough attention given to neighbourhood considerations and local community concerns. That's part of our policy, that we want local communities and indeed a greater say for the local authorities, as a matter of fact, as well as neighbourhood plans. It may be necessary to build on some areas of green land. One would prefer that not to happen, and if it is to happen, it should in fact be a last resort. But Brian is right in relation to the 5-year supply. We don't have it. The goalposts very often keep shifting. The formulas keep changing. We want some semblance of order to be brought back to that. And until it is brought back to that, it's going to be very difficult for Cheshire East to produce a local plan which is going to be viable. And unfortunately, this is, as you started with your initial remarks, all down to the coalition government when it first introduced this NPPF. If it had given it a bit more thought, we might have had something a bit more sensible and a bit more coherent. Unfortunately, we don't.
You're listening to BBC Radio Stoke. This morning, a discussion between the leaders of the Conservatives, the Labour, the Liberal Democrats and the UKIP group on Cheshire East. Also standing, 11 independent candidates, 1 from Crewe West End First, 3 from Middlewich First, 1 from the Patriotic Socialist Party, 1 from Nantwich First and 1 from the Labour and Cooperative Party. You can have your say this morning. 01782 208 008 is the number to call. You can text 81333, start your message with the word Stoke if you have a question, or you want to put comments about what you're hearing this morning from the four leaders. 01782 208 008. It's 9:30.